Today, the three judges on the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals, a three-judge panel, ruled that detained Tufts PhD student Romesa Ozturk must be transferred from that detention center in Louisiana, where she has been held for over a month, to Vermont within a week. And there, a judge will hear her appeal to be released from imprisonment on bail. Ozturk, a legal resident on a student visa, was snatched off the street by plainclothes immigration agents earlier this year. You're seeing it happen now. She's currently being imprisoned for her protected free speech, seemingly after she wrote an op-ed in her school paper last year at Tufts, where she studies, that was critical of Israel's war on Gaza and Tufts' response to student protests. This is part of an authoritarian attempt to criminalize thought, criminalize political speech, and protest in this country. The Trump administration is attempting to use the full force of the government to punish those who disagree with its support for Israel's war. We have seen the state weaponized in new ways against legal immigrants like Ozturk and Mahmoud Khalil and others. But the federal government is also cracking down on U.S. citizens, putting enormous pressure on universities, both public and private, where some of the most organized and active protests surrounding Gaza have formed. As we speak, you see there, dozens of students at Columbia University are occupying the school's main library, for example. There are NYPD officers on the scene. Mayor Eric Adams, who has aligned himself closely with President Trump, called the protest unacceptable. Protests of all kinds are happening all over the country. I mean, cities and universities have been collaborating with the Trump administration's pressure campaign to stop them. NYU, for example, tried to bar more than 30 pro-Palestinian students from taking their final exams if they did not renounce their rights to protest first. They later walked that back amid public pressure. In Texas, a federal lawsuit was filed last week accusing UT Austin of collaborating with the Texas government to, quote, suppress pro-Palestine speech in violation of the First Amendment. Part of that suit now includes body cam audio of a police officer questioning the legality of arresting peaceful protesters. At Barnard University, again here in New York, student journalist found her graduation under threat for simply covering a protest at her school, not participating in it, covering the protest. Barnard, too, may have backed down due to pressure. This atmosphere, this use of pressure and legal means to kind of render taboo an ideological tendency, it's the closest I've seen to McCarthyism in my lifetime. It's an attempt to take a specific, constitutionally protected ideological perspective and intimidate people away from expressing it through threats of force and banishment. It's gotten to the point where when I saw these viral images of musician Dave Matthews holding up signs reading "Stop the Genocide" and "Stop Killing Children," honestly, my first thought was to check his immigration status for fear the Trump administration would try to have him deported. Turns out, though born in South Africa, he's a naturalized U.S. citizen. And here's, to me, what's so crazy about all this. It's crucial, as this happens, not to lose sight of what all these people are protesting in the first place. Gaza has been bombed for a year and a half. Best estimates we have are that 15,000 children have been killed. 1 million people have been dislocated. The entire strip has been effectively razed to the ground, all of which happened with the sometimes tacit, often explicit support of the Biden administration, as new reporting from Israel's Channel 13 and Dropsite highlights. And after all that, the Trump administration says that the real extremism, the danger, is the one happening on college campuses. And now, just this week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is announcing moving on to the newest phase of his plan, which, at least as reported and as communicated by ministers in his own government, appears to be to bring about an ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Both the United Nations and the Israeli human rights group B'Tselem has said that ethnic cleansing there is already underway. Netanyahu is openly promising to destroy everything in Gaza, although almost everything is destroyed, to make life there so miserable that 2 million Palestinians will be forced to flee. The hopes for the return of remaining Israeli hostages being held by Hamas almost certainly extinguished. Here is Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, just yesterday.
אז אמרתי עוד פעם, עזה חרבה לחלוטין, אגב, פשוט מכיוון שהיא כולה תשתית טרור אחת גדולה מעל ומתחת לפני הקרקע, פשוט חרבה לחלוטין. אמרתי, אזרחיה מרוכזים מציר מורג ודרומה במרחב הומניטרי שאין בו חמאס ואין בו טרור, ואגב משם הם מתחילים לצאת במספרים גדולים מאוד למדינות שלישיות. זה אירוע שישנה את המציאות, את ההיסטוריה של מדינת ישראל עשרות שנים קדימה. אנחנו חייבים להשקיע בו הרבה יותר, זה בעיקר אירוע מדיני מול ארצות הברית, לקבל את אותן מדינות שלישיות. יש שיח טוב שמתקדם מול אותן המדינות, זה צריך להיות הרבה יותר משמעותי, אבל שוב, אין חמאס כישות מתפקדת, לא צבאית ולא אזרחית, חטופינו בעזרת השם חזרו לביתם. צה"ל ממשיך עוד לטהר ולהפוך כל אבן ולהשמיד תשתיות. האזרחים העזתים מרוכזים בדרום, מיואשים לחלוטין, מבינים שאין שם תוחלת ואין מה לחפש בעזה, ומחפשים רילוקיישן להתחיל חיים חדשים במקומות אחרים.
Now, Smotrich is not the only member of Netanyahu's government openly saying stuff like this. Times of Israel quotes National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir saying Gaza must endure hell, and hell also means bombing all the aid depots that Hamas holds, as well as halting the supply of electricity and water. Doing so will cause mass starvation of Hamas terrorists and their supporters in the Gaza Strip, and will allow us to return to war with tremendous force when Hamas terrorists are weak and exhausted without any significant ability to fight back, and we can crush them without difficulty. Just today, Chef Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen wrote an alarming dispatch. Quote, after serving more than 130 million total meals and 26 million loaves of bread over the past 18 months, World Central Kitchen no longer has the supplies to cook meals or bake bread in Gaza. Food and aid have not entered Gaza in more than 2 months. Now, instead of opposing any of that, our government is enabling it. The Trump administration, in fact, is apparently involved in negotiating conversations about what countries will take the Palestinians forced to flee from the desperation, engaging in the facilitation of what would essentially amount to mass population transfers. And that's a phrase that rightly recalls some of the worst episodes in human history. So currently, we are looking at U.S. and Israeli policy that is more aggressively radical and extremist, more flagrantly in violation of international law and human rights than I think we've seen before. But if you point that out, or you hold up a sign, or you protest, or you write a student op-ed on campus, the Trump administration may try to label you a terrorist, an enemy of the state, and have you removed from the country or put into detention for months. Meanwhile, too many top figures in the Democratic Party have effectively abdicated their leadership on this issue. So what exactly are young Americans who, as almost every poll shows, have increasingly soured on Israeli policy in Gaza, what are they supposed to do exactly? Should students shut up and pretend that their government isn't abetting mass civilian death and population transfer? I don't think that's going to happen. I can tell you this. No amount of repression and bullying is going to successfully stamp out the movement against this ongoing carnage. If history is any indication, it is just as likely to make the movement stronger.